Hello everyone. So I decided to make a new series on my channel called Why You Should Read, which I've already did one episode of with Dice, and coincidentally, Dice is going to be the webtoon that I review again since I have caught up to it. The difference really between webtoon reviews and Why You Should Read is that I'm more convincing you about why you should read this series rather than reviewing an already established webtoon like Unordinary. So I'm gonna make that series and I guess try to organize my channel for whatever it's worth. And yeah, let's get right into it. So today we're gonna be talking about Dice and how Dice is such an amazing webtoon. I just caught up to it just about, well, actually, I did about a week ago. And honestly, it was some of the most amazing material that I have read in a really, really long time. Just the underlying themes that the author has and just how the dystopian hierarchy is so present in their world is absolutely spectacular. And a lot of stuff happened and it got crazy, crazy good towards the end. Before I get into it, there are going to be some spoilers, so I'm going to put the alert there now, but I can't really talk about the webtoon and why you should read it if I don't spoil it, some of it for you, or possibly everything for you. So if you are into Dice and you don't want to be spoiled, I would suggest you leave this video. But in that, if you have read Dice and just want to talk about the underlying themes of the webtoon, then this definitely is the video for you. Now, it makes me sad that, to say this, but Dice is kind of a very, very underrated webtoon. Even by today's standards, it's so underwhelming to the natural eye, being as where a show like Unordinary has over 4.4 million followers, whereas Dice only has like 1.6 at the recording of this video, which kind of makes me a little sad because it's such a good webtoon. And then side note on that too, if you read Unordinary, in her panel that I went to last week, Udo-chan clearly states that one of the webtoons that inspired her to make her series was Dice. And actually, really, when she said that, thinking about it, there are many underlying themes in Unordinary that you do see from Dice as well. I just feel like the reason why it's more like respected in Unordinary because those themes are very prevalent and obvious in her work, whereas in Dice it's kind of under the rug. While it covers itself up as a simple dark dice game, a lot of the themes that it represents are very, very under the table, so to speak. And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just that in a society where being obvious, especially in a work such as webtoons, anime, is very stronger, Unordinary does take the cake when we talk about it in that regards. Then again, I digress. So where the series is now, well, it's going to be in its last season, which makes me really, really sad because Dice is one of those older webtoons that, like, if you've been reading them for a long time, you have come across this at one point in your life. It's one of those staple kings that got a lot of people started in webtoons. So I'm sad to see that one of another staple webtoon is going to be ending very, very soon. But in its final season, before its season 3, the main character, Dong Tae, successfully defeats or figures out like X, which is the game master's source of power, and ends up weakening him to the point of near death. But with that being said, it was a skirmish between Inju, X, Dante, and Mu Young, and no one really knows what happens in that skirmish. Only two things. One, Dante has lost all his dice, so he's reverted back to his old original self. And then two, there is apparently no game master as the final dice went into auto mode. And in that auto mode, I guess because that Dante was a huge, huge threat, they dubbed Dante as the monster in this new twisted game. Whereas if he is killed, he gets 1,000 dice. And if you kill the other members, you get 500. But the main one is Dante, who was very, very prevalent in finding out X's secret and weakening him to the point where they are now. So now, if you read on Naver Webtoons, actually, they're all the way up to 230, but it's in Korean. Now, I did read up to that point, but for the sake of my channel and these videos and the fact that not many people are really learning Korean, I'm just going to stick to line Webtoons translations for the remainder of the series' longevity. But if you did want to read more, it is on Naver Webtoons, and I will leave a link in the description below. So right now they have started their 4th season of episode 1, and it was already really twisted, and a lot of things are going on, being as we do see Dante and a new potential character that may be very, very pivotal in the new arc. Oh, also a side note is that you see everyone's face but Inju, so it kind of gives hint about what exactly happened to her, even though it's unclear. But I feel that something more has happened to Inju. Maybe Inju has become like the game master, because I'll show a picture right now. If you see this panel, you see everyone's face who was very pivotal in uprising against X and defeating him, except for Inju, which I find a little bit weird, and I feel like it is a foreshadowing or a hint of other powerfuler events to come. But again, I digress. Let's take a look at some of the current arcs of DICE and how they were such powerful arcs towards developing this entire story, and why I continuously say that DICE is such an underrated webtoon. So let's pick up where season 2 ends and season 3 begins. If you don't know, Inju takes the power of the dice and becomes a A-ranked dicer in hopes to end the dreaded game that she sees all around her school. The school was placed in a deadly siege battle by X, and the game ended with Inju becoming a final dicer and obtaining 2, I believe 3 dice powers in hopes of becoming a S-rank dicer and to defeat X and end the game. But I'm going to get to more of Inju's character later, because while people may not like her character, I absolutely love her character because of what she stands for and how consistent that she is. But again, more into that just a little bit. Let's start off with the first chapter of season 3, which the author clearly states is not like episode 1, but it's the prologue. And it gives us a little bit of story about X. And I feel like this is really, really strong because it gives us to understand more about X's brain and why it works. And by understanding his past, which actually is very, very dark and a little bit twisted, we can understand why he is the way he is now. I mean, if you don't know, X is a kid. And this is all like being created in a kid's mind, which I find very acceptable and satisfying that a kid-like game would be created by a kid who really hasn't been able to develop the difference between right or wrong, a kid who has been abused by his father and lived all alone and only wanted someone to play with. So his mind is kind of twisted and messed up from the get-go. All of this kind of makes sense about why X is doing everything. In animation class, my teacher always tells me that there must be a reason and an objective of why your characters do everything. And I really like this opening prologue because it gives us a direct reason about why X is the way he is, why he thinks that all of this is just a game. He thinks it's a game because 1, he doesn't have a concept between right and wrong, and 2, he really just wants someone to play with, and he's been abused and he's been alone. So that kind of warped his brain a little bit. And then when he gets the final dice by pure luck of whim plot, his brain becomes further and further warped as if all this is acceptable. But then also too, X is probably the main catalyst in expressing the author's theme of dystopian hierarchy in a human society. See, X has challenged, and we're going to get more into this in the next arc too. X challenges this idea of human survival. What will human beings do to get the things that they want? He's kind of like the devil, in a sense, not to go biblically, but just in how he opens up with temptation and desire, because the dice operate based on how strong someone's desire is. And I really love the author portraying what humans do if the desire is so strong enough, or if you're desperate to change your life. And X is a main catalyst of that. Now, also being a warped up kid with a warped up mentality, he's also as this catalyst of human beings and their quest for desire, their quest for power, and what will we do when we're pushed against that wall. But again, I'm going way ahead of myself. Long story short, I really do like the prologue, and it really sets up X's character for two reasons. One, it gives us reasons for why he's doing these things, and then two, we do get to see his backlog and how that developed into the character that he is. So really strong stuff here. And then we're going to get into one of my favorite arcs, which is the Lovers arc. This is absolutely fantastic, for not for the feels, but for how strongly it really tests the human's mentality to fulfill their desires. And when human beings are pushed to certain limits, what can we do? And I really loved this arc for that. So if you don't know, the Lovers arc it follows two characters after Dante makes his challenge with X to gather 6 A-rank dicers, in which then it was changed to 4, in hopes to fight and see X. So this arc follows two characters, Sok-kyun, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, and his girlfriend Nani Kim. Nani Kim is very, very ill, and she is on her deathbed. So what her boyfriend does is that he finds out about the dice, and he starts using dice for the sole purpose of increasing his girlfriend's health. So you could think of it this way. She has the ability of poison, which takes her health lower and lower and lower every time. But if one is to use the dice to increase one's health, then the condition is kind of mitigated. X tells him that while this is a temporary fix, this dice doesn't heal her completely. So if he wants to continue to have her healthy, or what you would call this healthy, he would have to get more and more dice. And again, since dice are in the desires of one's heart, he has to kill people and injure people in order to get the dice he needs for his girlfriend. It even gets to the point where he challenges all the other dice rankers in order to get the final dice, because she is at her deathbed so much that he is desperate to find a way to heal his girlfriend. Side note, she ends up dying, but she wanted to die that way, because when she finds out that he was doing these things, she wanted to kill herself anyway because of what he was going through. This arc is absolutely perfect for this series for two reasons. One, not only is it a very sad and touching story about two people who are in love and are soon to be departed very soon, but it also teaches one of the themes that I keep saying is so prevalent in this webtoon. And if it wasn't very obvious in this arc, then I don't know what would it be obvious in. And it is that theme of when human beings are pushed against the wall, they can do amazing things, even go against their own character, whether it be to get what they truly desire. And Sok-kyun is a fantastic character because he exercises this fact to an absolute T, where he's not a bad person at all, and he really is about justice and honor. But when he was pushed against the wall where his girlfriend was about to die, he was able to go against himself and even go against his character to get these dice for his girlfriend. He was even able to put his body through sheer amounts of strain to the point where he dies as well in order to save his girlfriend, to get all 6 of the final dice, which is absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely perfect. It's absolutely what the webtoon really needed to go into, and it was a great way to speed things along in a way where the material didn't seem dragged out. All in all, I think this was probably the best arc of the entire webtoon series, but again, there are more arcs coming along, so that's kind of like a soft opinion in my opinion. So he does end up meeting Inju because he is an A dice ranker, and he starts taking out other lower rank dice rankers in order to get their dice, and he meets up with Inju, who challenged him to a PvP battle. Now, she could have had a chance to defeat this character, but she chose not to. And honestly, when she didn't defeat Sok-kyun, I actually really enjoyed her character very, very much for one weird reason, and that it's very, very consistent. See, Inju may seem like she is the pretty girl who has everything, but what the webtoon kind of tells us, like, under the table, is that she has a lot of issues too. Just because she seems to have everything on the outside doesn't mean that she's suffering on the inside. And I really appreciate that because it's so like representative of life as we know it today. And I kind of liked her character and her actions in this season 3 because they were very consistent and they lined up with her ideals that she has from episode 1. See, Inju, the reason she became a dicer is because she wants to eliminate dice. Being a person party, seeing other students kill each other, mangle each other, and other innocent lives get hurt, she really feels that dice, and probably is for the better, should be eliminated from the world. So she becomes a final dicer, well, a rank dicer, in order to have a hope of eliminating these dice. But she initially doesn't want to hurt anybody. And I personally like that, even though she should have killed that dude from the very beginning. But she really doesn't want to hurt anybody. She only wants to fulfill her objectives, which is to eliminate the dice, which again, I kind of respect because out of all the characters that have changed their ways for the sake of the dice, this is like her way of saying dice are not going to change the person that I am, which again is another representative fact of life, because no matter how hard life hits you, there are just some people, myself included, that won't change because how horrible life can be. And I really did respect that, and I do feel for Inju in that regards, because she has kept her character consistent up until the last episode of season 3. I also liked the chariot arc of Dice because it served its purpose as to developing our main character, and he became a stronger character in my opinion based on that arc alone. So the chariot arc, basically Dante needs power, and X is kind of being a jerk and refused to give him any dice so he can level up. I mean, would you, if someone is trying to overthrow you, would you give them the means to overthrow you? That kind of makes sense. But anywho, Dante needs a way to fight X, and he needs more power because right now he feels he doesn't stand a chance against the other 8 rankers, which he doesn't. With Inju's 3 skills and the other girl's 2 skills, he really doesn't stand too much of a chance against them. So he uses his phone to enter a hidden game. It's like a vending machine game. I forgot the name of it, so sorry about that. But in this game, he accepts a challenge from a doll in which that if he fights 4 enemies, he gets 1 roll, which gets him a special A rank skill of all the S rankers that have fought X and lost. And then I really like this because the foes that he has to fight are all remnants of his memory. And they're all things also of traits that he has to fix if he was going to fight X. For example, when he fights his best friend, he is challenged to learn to move away from the past and to lead on to the future. When he fights the bullies, because while Dice has altered him like physically, Dice didn't alter him mentally, and he was still kind of hiding and being scared of the bullies that bullied him, even though he is way stronger than all the bullies and the crowd that ridiculed him to beat. All in all, these characters that Dante has to fight, these shadows that he had to overcome, were really good for him because not only did they develop his character, they kind of prepared him for future battles, but then also it kind of foreshadowed to us the events that were going to transpire between this and the final season. But also we all knew who his final boss was, and I really wish he would have had the chance to fight the final boss, but at the same time, we kind of knew how this battle was going to play. So I'm kind of satisfied. And then the last thing I do want to talk about, because this is already a long video, I'm sorry if you got to this point, well, thank you, is about Muyang. And Muyang is a very, very interesting character, probably one of the more interesting characters in Dice. Oh, also a fun fact. His name, Muyang, actually is very interesting because in the panel in which they show the spelling of his name, the kanji kind of means something a little different. So the first kanji here we have is called nai or mu. So nai or mu means infinite or nothing. It's kind of like in Japanese when you say nai, which is the negative form of iru and eru. It means not there. So his first part of his name means nothing or not there. And then his second part, which is say or k, I forgot the way you read it, but it means shadow. Or you could think of it as kage, which is the word for shadow. So his name means empty shadow, which I thought was really interesting and very unique of the author to do. But anywho, Moon-young is such an interesting character because he has transcended possibly lifetimes just to keep playing with X. And he was one of the final characters in the skirmish of the last episode, in which no one knows what happens, but all we know is that no one is the game master of the game, and it went into auto mode, which has made things absolutely crazy. But I will get to more about Moon-young and his character in another video because this is already really long, and I'm going to end the video here. Dice is an amazing webtoon. If you want to read it, I will leave a link in the description below. I highly recommend, especially if you read something like Unordinary, and you could probably compare the two. Thank you for watching this video up to this point, or even skimming through it. I really do appreciate it. If you like this video, make sure you leave a like and a subscribe, and expect more webtoon content and webtoon related content in the future. With that being said, I thank you for watching and listening, and have a good day. Sorry this video took so long.